Hey folks, welcome back to the channel, your home for all content Lord of the Rings home. Today, we're going to be talking about the interview that Tauna did with game director Nick Reinhardt, and I'm going to really encourage you to go and watch that video. It really, kind of hyped me up for the future of this game. We've got lots to talk about, though. It's an hour long, so the purpose of this video is basically going to be a very digestible, shortened format of that. So I'm just going to essentially rattle off a lot of the things they talked about. I'm not going to get into the discussion of it or my opinion of it. I'm going to say maybe a little few things here or there, but this is mostly an informative video. Here's X, Y, and Z, the important things I think came from that interview, essentially a condensed version of that. So the topics we have to go over today are the what-if variations, Glyphs, basically the mod system for this game that's coming, MultiSquad PVP, how they're going to address the RNG of the Chapter 1 bomber, and then sort of some miscellaneous stuff. So with that, let's just get right into it. Again, I want to make this a short video. What if characters? So basically, they're going to focus on changing one thing from a sort of a triangle, is the way that Nick Reinhardt described it, is either the person, place, or an item. The first what if character is going to be based around the Mines of Moria. So this is going to be a change in the place, probably, or a person and the place, the person being in that place. But it's not going to be fellowship related. What I think this means is it will likely be some sort of dwarf, which I'm, of course, very excited about. Nick has consistently used Dark Galadriel as an example of a possible what-if character. He did it again in this interview, so I think that is something we should expect in the future. Not necessarily the first one or maybe the second one, but definitely sometime in the future. For the time being, what-if characters are going to be released as marquees. Moving right along, Glyphs. Let's talk about the Glyph system. It's going to be a level 25 unlock. There's going to be 6 slots, primary stats for a particular slot. So, the upper right slot has, 2 primary stats you can kind of choose from. And then there's going to be a wide pool of secondary slots, but the ranges on those secondary slots are going to be narrow. Speed will be one of those stats. Stat increases are tied to gear tier. So what I mean by that is if you have a G8 character, the amount you get from glyphs is going to be higher than if you put that glyph on, let's say, a G5 character. It doesn't deactivate. It basically, if you can swap it back and forth, and you just get more access to the glyph. So these glyphs are very similar to Swigo mods in some respects, the 6 slots, primary stats with secondary stats like that. And then it's a little bit different. There's going to be essentially functional set bonuses. So that's what's different from the Swigo ones. It's not just, you have a speed set. It's going to give you some functional battle use that is going to change how your character plays. One thing that they kept mentioning is that they want it to be, impactful, but not over the top. And this came up a lot when they were talking about speed. So basically, they want the speed to be something like where you're tuning your character's turn orders, not, I need to have speed on every single, that needs to be my primary focus. We'll see how this lands. One of the things I keep thinking about when it comes to glyphs and just mod systems in general is there's a very delicate balance. And you not only have to worry about how your glyphs are going to be balanced, but also the quality of life features that come out with glyphs. How easy is it to level them up? How easy is it to acquire them? How easy is it to swap them from one character to the next? What does all of that interface look like? So those are just some things I've been thinking about. It's coming this calendar year. It's going to be the next big progression system, I think, for this game. These are some of the set bonuses that they told us that are probably going to come out. I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but all of this is, of course, subject to development, change. Things might come up last second and they have to change something. But I think for the most part, it seems like a lot of these changes that he was able to talk about are pretty much in the final stages of ready to go for, being on the board for release. So here are 3 different sets that he specifically gave. The Lemba set, at the end of character's turn, there's a % chance to regenerate 1 stamina in 1 random ability. The Overeager set, gain some % of turn meter at the start of each encounter, but reduce your speed by some % after that, or some flat %, or some flat number after that. Last Stand, start each encounter with a stack of Unbreakable. When lost, gain might plus advantage for 1 turn. The thing I will say about the glyphs and the mod system in general, I like the functionality of The set bonuses, this seems really awesome. I like that better than just having an additional speed boost or health percent boost or whatever. I think this is a better way to go. It is going to require some careful balance, so I'm curious how that's all going to turn out, obviously, but I am excited for them. Basically, we'll just see how they're going to go. Oh, the last thing I want to say is that I do like that actually how much glyph access you have is determined by gear tier. I like that now that gear is another important part of your character progression instead of something that's just kind of like icing on the top of the cake for maybe your arena team or whatever. Speaking of, let's talk about multi-squad PvP. This will replace arena and you will be doing it daily. This also means we're probably going to have some sort of league system. They think it's probably going to be 5v5. That's what their goal is for now and for the foreseeable future. And it's probably going to be early next year. So I think a lot of people were kind of a little bit skeptical or worried about this particular part where it's replacing arena. And I think the way he described it is pretty good. So you basically want to grow up with this multi-squad PvP feature, which means that, you know, however many territories or whatever you want to call them, you're going to be defending or attacking is going to be based on your collection power. So, you know, right at the start of the game, you are going to probably just have like one territory you're defending or attacking. And so in that ways, it is going to be a lot like Squad Arena. And then obviously as your collection grows, you have, you know, more territories or whatever to put squads into, some to attack, some to defend. I'm very curious how this is going to work out. I think it's actually interesting that the direction they're going is going to be daily, but I also really like that they're basically replacing squad PvP with this. This means that this is going to probably be the game mode where you're going to be collecting the majority of your premium currency. It also means there's going to be a league system, so people who feel locked out because they are in Shard 1 but maybe don't spend as much money, I think this will be a good remedy for sort of all of that. Chapter 1 Bomber RNG. This is how they're going to change it. This is what the plans are anyways. Instead of 10 stacks guaranteeing a bomb drop on the orc side, it's going down to 5 stacks. There's still going to be some RNG up to 5 stacks. It's not binary in that particular way, so I don't know if they're just going to do 20%, so like 1 stack is 20%, 2 stacks is 40%. That would make sense to me, but 5 stacks is guaranteed. The War Guard is changing from a taunt to a provoke. I don't know how many stacks of provoke, but that's what's happening. This is going to happen sooner than we think. They didn't give an exact date, but this is coming. It's pretty soon in the pipeline is what he made it seem like. And then there are possible additional raid difficulties down the line. I think they'll probably tune that to future progression systems. I don't think that's something you need to probably worry about right now. I see a lot of people saying 5 stacks is too easy and that 7 would have been preferred. And I'm going to have to disagree with people on this. I think 5 stacks is actually a really good way to do this. I'm a big fan of these changes. 5 stacks is really easy on the first wave, and it lets you make choices, strategic choices for how you're going to set yourself up for a second wave, how you can prepare for variations for a second wave, that sort of thing. So I think this actually adds a lot of strategy. It takes out the RNG element a lot. There's still some, but it takes out a big chunk of the frustrating RNG element, I will say. And I think it gives a lot of other teams the opportunity to kind of max points, which I think is what you want for the intro chapter to the raid. Lets people get into the later chapters, but it also lets people kind of choose a team that they want to play and figure out how best to strategically play that for this chapter 1 of the raid. So I'm actually a big fan of these changes. Let's move on to some miscellaneous stuff that they talked about. And this is basically it. Short video, short and sweet. They haven't established any cadence yet for marquee to premium store to farmability, or, you know, when the legendary events are going to keep going around. They've obviously initially started with what they use in Swigo. I think they're testing the waters here, getting some data. Is that good enough? Do we need to change it? That sort of thing. They've talked about rotating the marquees and rerunning them. Is what I mean by that, is rotating and having the marquees kind of come back like they did with the R1 event. What was not clear to me was whether that's going to be, you know, every 3 weeks this marquee is going to rerun, or is it going to be I've hit level 20 and so now I get access to these marquees, or is it going to be I hit some sort of milestone and now I get to, you know, rerun or I get to go do the R1 marquee again or whatever. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to play out, but I am glad to see that. I think that's actually a really, really awesome feature to add into the game, and something I think that not a lot of people are talking about after this video came out. One thing I did hear, the raid key counter is on the list, but it doesn't seem like that's coming out anytime soon. The way Nick explained it, he basically was like, we just want to get the content out, and we had a tight deadline, and so we wanted to ship the content as opposed to the quality of life sort of feature stuff that was supposed to come with the content. Elrond is returning sooner than you think. I don't know what that means in terms of timeline. It's all kind of vague. I'm still thinking it's probably going to be somewhere either end of September or end of October. The important update there, though, is that all elves will be able to be used to unlock him, including Legolas, right? Some disappointing news, at least for me. There are no light side characters currently on their character roadmap. That obviously does not mean that they have not thought about them or that they aren't going to be coming in the future. Nick said probably sometime next year would be a good guess for a large light side character, but it has to fit into the kind of cohesive timeline that they have. You can't just drop one in there, which makes sense to me. They will be having more shadow side large characters coming out. And he spoke to this, and I agree with him because I've thought about it quite a bit, is that in fantasy settings in general, there tend to be, the big bad is almost always there, a staple in these types of setups and fantasy settings. And it's not, you don't have like the big good and the small bad. It's almost always, small good, big bad. And that just kind of ends up getting reflected into the characters of the game. But one interesting thing he did mention about the large shadow character coming was that it's going to be incorporated into the squads in a unique way. So that got me thinking. One idea just off the top of my head was like, oh, well, Shelob would be kind of an interesting fit into a Mordor squad, something like that. But I don't know for sure. That's just kind of something I was thinking about. Okay. The last thing is that they are already thinking about the next raid chapter. They haven't obviously planned it out or started coding it, I don't think, or any of that sort of stuff, but that's something that they have been thinking about. They're trying to really get this raid, kind of finished up out the door, and then I think they'll probably have to work on the glyph system after that, but they can start planning the raid after they've finished this one, and they've got a bunch of raid ideas in the bag. One thing I didn't write on here, but I do want to mention, is they are thinking about how to include other types of character events, kind of like Sam's journey or something different. That would be really awesome to see. And just events in general. So they had some of those in the beta that you had to like hit certain milestones and whatnot. But basically they took those out because their economy focus was changing. And it didn't quite make sense. So, but they're on essentially the docket of things that they are looking at. So I think we could probably expect some of this stuff to maybe appear next year. That's all from the interview. Again, I go to encourage you to watch it if you do have the full hour to go and watch it. And I'll leave a link in the description below to that video. But with that, thanks for watching. Take it easy.